welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com Broiler Chicken Show. Trade your trading plans, don't take too much risk on any one trade, and just let yourself get rich. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Broiler Chicken Show. I don't know. I have such a hard time at this YouTube channel and stuff. I don't know what I'm seeing here on YouTube. Does this make any sense to you at all? I'm seeing Crypto and Stock Trading Show, 4/13/25, Broiler Chicken Show. What do you see on the screen, Chris? Do you see the newsletter?
I do see the newsletter. I see you in the bottom left-hand corner.
Okay, so and I'm moving. If I go, you can see me?
Yep, everybody can see you and see that.
All right, and why on earth does my page look like this? I can't. Okay, I'll try refreshing. Sure, sounds good. I see some people over there joining us. That's always a good sign, I suppose. Actually, I did see a little bit more interest in the YouTube videos this past week. So that's encouraging. All right, I see. Oh my goodness, my eyes are so bad. I can't even read. I think it says Kevin. Hello, Kevin. Howdy. Oh yeah, there I am. Okay, looks like we're rocking and rolling. I see Gilts. I see Blaze Blackwater. My eyesight is terrible. I can't read it. So my apologies if I butchered your name. Hello, all. Welcome to the best Sunday show on the interweb. Wow, there's a statement. Awesome. Thank you, sir, ma'am, whoever you are. Elworth Leedland. Jesus, my eyesight. God, I can't believe how blind I am. I literally am going to get my magnifying glass and do the whole Sherlock Holmes here. See who the heck you are. Blaze Blackwater. All right, Blaze Blackwater. Yes, the newsletter. All right, cool. That must have been what I was trying to show on the screen. Ella Vorn. Hello, Ella Vorn. Got my magnifying glass. What a doofus. Big House shorting Trump coin into the ground, right? I think that's it. Sailor buying 700, what the hell is that? Mil BTC on Monday. Well, there you go. Just keep buying. Buy. Don't stop buying. Buy more. Okay, fine, whatever. Oh, goodness. What a crazy market this is, eh? Had the newsletter out here for you. I think it's a nice, simple one-pager. Theoretically, I should just try and focus the conversation today on this information. Technically, I don't know. The Beamish had decided in his great wisdom that I would do these Sunday shows as kind of a dovetail for our education program. This isn't a bad opportunity to do like Q&A. Just in case there was anything covered in the current course material, whether it be 1, 2, or 3, and I suppose even 4, if you're working with Zach. To just be another resource to try and help answer questions. Because keep in mind, I mean, geez, jamming 35 years, 40 years of market experience into a 12-week program introduction to investing. I think it's asking a bit much for you to understand all of it right away. In fact, actually, I had a really cool conversation today with somebody in the level 2 program who was learning about commitments to traders reports. And he asked a question about the whole sell in May and walk away. And I told him, well, we cover that actually trading seasonality in great depth in the level 3 program. So what I try to do with the education program is kind of just dovetail information. And then in the level 3 program, we circle back around knowing that you now know what trading plans look like. And, you should have had some time to understand what setups look like and maybe a little bit of paper trading, logging and stuff, and then you work with me directly. And we introduce you to things like options and, seasonal trades and all that kind of fun stuff, harmonics. Had a really cool session this past week with Ed, one of our Sacramento futures traders, who's just such a badass. I love working with Ed on a daily basis. And trading with the Dom and trading market profile and TPOs and all that. So the education program kind of, ironically enough, it starts with just a broad overview. And then as we go full circle and circle back around in level 3 and level 4, a lot of it's actually just revisiting topics that we just talk on so very, very quickly in the level 1, and the level 2, but in level 3 working with me, we have a little bit more time to go into detail. I have to say, I really like the actual educational offering. From beginning to end, level 1 through level 4, it's about 46 weeks of educational material. Every single module is brand new material. And I do like to space it out over, I don't know, a good year or so, especially for the 1 through 3. If you can think about it from like a trimester kind of perspective, the way that you would go through regular school, you have a spring term, summer term, fall term. I think from beginning to end, if you give us a solid year of attention of learning material every single week as a brand new topic, and then you spend a solid year putting that information into practice, by the end of that 2-year period, I think we build some absolutely incredible traders. And I will say one thing I'm super proud of is now almost all of our participants in the day trader room are actually funded with Top Step, my old prop firm. And kind of a fun thing, I thought this was so cool. My old boss, and I think the absolute world of Mr. Hoagland, I think he is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet in your life. And if you have the opportunity, you should really get to know him. But they actually created Top Step little action figurines, John Hoagland. And I was like, damn, that's cool. I want one. I'll bid 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 50. I don't care what the offer is. I'll pay it. I was so happy to see that. That really put a big smile on my face. Good old Hoag. Anyway, if I was gonna have a mentor in this business, it would be like guys like John Hoagland, who absolute sweetheart of a gentleman and smarter than a whip. Anyway, slowly working through the market. And unfortunately, this is such a difficult time for capitalism. This is such a difficult time for humans. One of the articles that we have in the newsletter, and I thought it was appropriate to put it in the newsletter this week, is, in the tweet that I put out to this effect was that, ironically enough, and most people in society just don't understand this. They never will. But that's fine. Really, this kind of information is for only those people that really are interested in learning how all this stuff works. There's an old saying in the market that the stock market is nothing more than just a reflection of how society feels. If a society is feeling optimistic and euphoric, you're going to have a really positive stock market. And as a guy who's been in the market now 30, 40 years, geez, I've seen all extremes now. And we used to always say in the brokerage business, it's not even really worth listening to anybody unless they've actually been actively working and trading in the market for at least a decade. But I might argue, to fully understand how all of these cycles all work in unison and conjunction, I hate to say it, but I think you probably need to have somebody that you've been working with through one of these entire fear, greed cycles and seeing sort of like Jupiter, Saturn crosses go from one extreme to the other, so you can really see how these fear, greed cycles play themselves out. And then I would actually make the argument that really to understand the big picture, you really need to understand 80-year market cycles. And where are we? in relation to the money cycle and the Great Reset, all that kind of conversation. To a certain degree, I think a lot of you, especially the people that are sort of proactive watching these kind of videos in my stream and stuff, you're all familiar with the money masters, right? So, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. I'm sure if anybody is curious, what is the money masters he's talking about? Suppose we could probably throw up the video link and you spend the next 3 or 4 hours learning how corrupt our society really is. And it's kind of funny how people sort of attribute it to JP Morgan, but don't attribute it to him. No, he never said that. I don't know. But there was a famous quote that somebody said way back when, millionaires don't respect astrology, but billionaires do. I hate to say it. If you can understand that astrology is nothing more than just a big stopwatch ticking away in the sky, and you understand the circular nature of things like solar systems and cells. So from the biggest picture, galaxies, all the way down to the smallest of entities, everything moves in circles and cycles, right? Orbits, all that. So why would anything about our human existence and the story of humans suffering on this silly planet, why would it not move in circles? Why would it not move in cycles? It's pretty common sense. It's weird though, when I was growing up, connecting economics and sociology was very, very difficult for people. But I remember the only time I ever got an A in any course in high school, because I was always a slacker and of course always making fun of the teachers and stuff. The only time I ever got an A, it was in my crazy country, they have grade 13. So they keep you in high school a year longer than the Americans. But grade 13 geography of all things. But it was a sociology study that I did. And the guys that I did the report with, we went and found movies about the demographic situation in Africa and what it meant for their economies going forward. And even the teacher was like, damn, I learned something here today. That's cool. So it just goes to show we all move in big circles, all moving. And ironically enough, as we sort of got into the latter part of the 1960s, which I think unfortunately is going to be sort of the similar cycle that we're going to be heading into here over the next 10, 20 years, less and less and less confidence in the system. It's going to be a very, very challenging period here going forward for us. But as you can see on the screen here, and I don't know how you describe it. I think the consumers around our society were very, very stressed about this injection of the inflation. Ironically enough, I think you can make the argument that the inflation injection actually started with the whole 2008 financial bailout, great financial crisis. It wasn't really, it was the banksters just lent way too much money to people that really they should have never lent money to. They got caught and they had to have a big government bailout. And when you say government bailout, really what you're seeing is they have to print a whole bunch of money out of thin air. And of course, money is based on debt. So if you explode the debt, then obviously the purchasing power of the money depreciates dramatically. So, that's Milton Friedman. What is inflation? In the 1960s and 70s, they let it get out of control by funding things like the Vietnam War, the Cold War, war on poverty, LBJ's great attempt at sort of leveling society's playing field. Spending way more money than they ever could. Of course, Nixon had to take the Americans off the gold standard. And we all know what happened since 1971. Our standard of livings have absolutely collapsed since we've been given the green light just to hyperinflate the money supply to solve all our problems, which doesn't really All it does is it placed into the banksters' hands, and they get to add a zero onto the end of all our prices every, I don't know, I guess 40 years or so, just to keep the game going, i.e., inflation. So I think that to a certain degree, we had been living quite a while without inflation, and that came roaring back in physical form through that COVID sickness window. And then kind of that just fiscal policy went right out the window. And unfortunately, that seems to happen, because these interest rate cycles are 80 years in duration. And it seems that when interest rates go to very, very low levels, all sort of reasonable economic thinking and, just business 101, economics 101, it all just goes right out the window. And people assume that interest rates are never going to go back up. But of course, good technicians, that all this stuff moves in cycles. So basically, they were just setting a massive trap for themselves. And people like Janet Yellen, really, they didn't do us any favors at all. And, considering the United States is the world hegemony, that's why we continually make reference to the Americans. I might actually argue that if the United States wasn't the world hegemony, we wouldn't be talking about Janet Yellen. We wouldn't give a fuck about her, except for all you American audience. So that's why, a Canadian like myself is continually making reference to this stuff. So, but she didn't do the United States any favors at all. And the tragedy of it all is that she will not be held to account. But I might argue that it's Janet Yellen's fault why the inflationary pressures in our society are as bad as they are for the American audience right now. She could have refinanced the United States debt at very, very, very low rates, but instead decided to roll all that debt into 2-year paper. And so instantly 2 years later, all of a sudden, interest rates start cranking back up, and now you got to refinance at much higher rates. And now you got Donnie here going, well, we spend $3 billion a day on interest payments. Well, if stupid Janet Yellen had just done a reasonable job at being U.S. Treasury Secretary, that would not have been the case. Actually, the United States would have been set up really well. And the interesting thing is, actually, we have a bunch of Americans in the group, and one gentleman who's just an absolute killer futures trader. And the guy is just taking money from the market on a daily basis. It's so cool working with him. He did go and buy a house and locked in that 30-year mortgage at I think it was 1.5%, 2% or some crazy ass number like that. And he's laughing. He's made in the shade. So I won't name names, but all our day traders probably know who I'm talking about. So consumers obviously did not, they were sort of slapped in the face that it turns out actually inflation is a real thing and the banksters are not working on our behalf and they really fucked us all over. And unfortunately, it was sort of after a while, especially guys like Jay Powell finally got sort of bitch slapped by guys like Druckenmiller, who are like, what the fuck are you doing, you stupid bankster cocksuckers? You're blowing up our society. And then the banksters sort of got the message. All right, okay, yeah, fair enough, Mr. Druckenmiller, you're right. We got to get in control of this, and we can't just take this stupid MMT kind of philosophy to life. And keep in mind, the people that are, and we could spend an hour going down that road, so I better not. I do think that to a certain degree, once the banksters sort of, got the message, quit fucking around and, do your job. I think that generally speaking, the consumer started to feel a lot happier. Yeah, interest rates cranked up. Belt tightening, but you saw the hyperinflation abate. And then along comes this guy, Donnie. Oh, fuck me. You might argue this was just a series of higher highs and higher lows, but you can clearly see 2025, he came along and just fucking took a sledgehammer to everything. And interestingly enough, his whole philosophy was, well, if we knock the economy down, economics 101, that should stop the inflationary pressure, which should cause bond prices to start rising when the interest rates move in the exact opposite to bond prices. So things like 10-year treasury, mortgage rates, all that kind of stuff, they should all be falling, and it's a good thing. And I think to all intents and purposes, that was working until all of a sudden one day the bond market stopped rallying. And I suppose this is a question of if you are so heavily in debt, who actually controls your economy? Can the politicians actually control the economy, or does the market control the economy? And if you thought interest payments at 4%, whatever, were bad, and I even put tweets out recently saying, poor old Hugh Hendry, and this guy deals in very, very large sums of money. I mean, clown like me. I'm a millionaire. He probably shits $1 million bills. But good old Hugh, and I suppose this is a follow-up. We can talk about that in a moment. But Hugh Hendry, he was sort of like, I went balls deep, long bonds. And I've been sort of watching the trade for a while because technically I don't really have a reason to get bullish of bonds. I suppose this is the TLT. I mean, I listened to the sales pitch, and frankly speaking, this guy aside, but this Basant, I think on balance, it sounded fairly reasonable, his argument, what they're trying to do. But, Mr. Trump just keeps slapping on more tariffs, more tariffs, more tariffs. And, the issue, I suppose, at the end of the day is who actually holds these bonds. I might argue that at some point there should be a very natural, normal technical bounce. But, Donnie's going and pissing off a lot of people around the world. And I almost get the impression that there has been like a coordinated conversation amongst the Europeans and to a certain degree amongst the Chinese, although I'm not quite sure how all that works. But specifically with regard to the Europeans, I actually get the impression that there's been sort of like a coordinated, it's time to just get ourselves out of the US Treasury bond market and our sort of dependence on US Treasuries. And the sort of scuttlebutt this past week has the US bond market lost its sort of, this is the last place of security in the market. I mean, you can see anybody that's worked with me over the years, you clearly know what this candle represents. That's a pretty ugly candle, folks. I was conjecturing, hey, look at, we've broken this downtrend line that's been going on forever. Do we actually start seeing W's over here on other sides of trend lines, suggesting that, hey, we got a new bull market here? And the market clearly this past week said, no, I don't think so. Not quite. So I even put out sort of tweets even today, sort of saying, if there's one market that you need to keep an eye on here, it's this bond market. This is the ETF, the TLT ETF. There's that same trend line that I talked about, going back all the way off of the top, way up here. So we're playing with that long-term trend line, but the problem now is we were above it. Like I said, I was like, oh man, if we can get a W over here, I'm going to turn uber bullish. There is that long-term trend line. Make that nice and big for you there. And now, unfortunately, we've slipped back below that trend line. A W that comes in down here, ironically enough, is kind of meaningless, which is ironic. Got to now get back above that trend line. And can we see a W on the other side of this trend line, please? That's a pretty damn big stretch. In fact, when I put out this tweet about a week or two ago, I guess it was a couple weeks ago, saying, hey, should we be paying attention? Should we be looking for some sort of turn in the bond market? Actually, I had a few people on the site go, what the fuck, Brian? You're crazy. So I did like what I heard from the U.S. Treasury Secretary. But unfortunately, the market is not liking what it's hearing at all. And also, too, we should note that, not only are they selling off U.S. treasuries, but they're also selling off the U.S. dollar as well. U.S. hegemony, all that kind of talk. It's interesting how we just went into, I don't have it noted on here. I probably should. I can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was the 30th. I have it noted on one chart around here. I think it was like here. And actually, I have the fun conversation with one lady on the site talking about Neptune into Aries. And wow, I don't know whether you again, astrologers, what is it? Millionaires disregard astrologers, billionaires don't, or something like that. I suppose it's billionaires don't respect astrology, but trillionaires now, I suppose, is the number we should be referencing nowadays. But Neptune going into Aries, and then the whole freaking market just collapsing here following that. Holy moly. And right on the exit of all these solar eclipses or this eclipse window. Wow, what a mess. So the next sort of celestial catalyst comes up here. And this is an interesting one because it will be Saturn. And I think it's the 25th. I could be mistaken. But Saturn goes into Aries. And I wonder whether this is sort of like Neptune's supposed to be like the dreamers and all that kind of sort of like dreaming, I don't know, wishful thinking kind of idea. And Saturn, unfortunately, is like the, authority and all that kind of talk. Oh, goodness. And of course, Mr. Trump is, beating the drum beat. He would love, I suppose, nothing less than to go and start a war and start murdering people around the world. That's one way to get yourself out of these sort of economic issues, is go start killing people. So who knows how that's going to play out. I will say that the Americans, they did sort of a really tepid conversation, I suppose, with Iran. I think Iran and the leaders of Iran go, oh boy, this is dangerous. We better play ball with these guys, or orange toupees are going to be in our face here. I don't know whether that's going to lead to anything. And frankly speaking, given the way that Israel's acting around its neighborhood, I can't see them all of a sudden. Donnie says, oh yeah, we got a peace deal with the Iranians. I can't see the Israelis going, oh yeah, okay, that's good by us. I just can't see that. So I have a funny feeling that the bullets are going to start flying in earnest here near the end of May. We'll see what happens. We're in a really weird window here where Neptune into Aries, I think, is driving a lot of this. And then, of course, all my sort of prognostications, crystal ball reading, all that crap. I actually think we're going to start transitioning into a bull phase somewhere in this April-May window. So strap on your seatbelts, folks. I don't know what the hell this is going to look like over the next month or two, but I do think we're in some sort of troughing event window here. And I'm hoping, hope, that what we're seeing out of the bond market, you could make the argument, if you were a smart, seasoned trader, that actually you want to be stepping in, especially into that gap. You want to be stepping in and buying against those lows. And keep in mind, this is the TLT. You could make the argument that we need a nice solid close down in here to indeed say that this level has been tested in earnest and this gap has been completely filled. So what I'm hoping, hope, is that calmer heads prevail and we can get this damn market to calm down. And ironically enough, what I heard, and I think what's happening here is, the Chinese are holding a shit ton of US bonds. And Donnie is, of course, continually ratcheting up the pressure against them. And I wouldn't be surprised, like I said earlier, the leader of my country, who was basically a puppet of the Rothschilds, has sort of formally said to the world that the relationship of my country and the United States of America, which makes no sense whatsoever, he's actually saying that our relationship is over. Now, you could make the argument that Donnie instigated all this. There was nothing wrong, but at the same time, too, you could make an argument that these absolutely insane budget deficits and trade deficits that the United States is running here, it's unsustainable over time. So at some point, this whole nonsense Fakezi was going to have to stop. So are we now in the window where the whole world now finds a new hegemony? And I suppose Ray Dalio over there has been talking about the Chinese becoming the world's new hegemony. I can't see that happening, but I don't know. I guess it's not really, I don't get paid to predict the future and I'm not very good at it. So maybe that's what happens. I don't think it's going to happen, but maybe. Hell, if the communists can march into my country and take over my country's government, keep in mind, the guy that's basically put himself in charge of my country, no democratic process whatsoever, and now calls a quick flash election, huge sort of brouhaha with Trump. And so as a result, a lot of the mindless Canadians are like, oh, yeah, fine, let's just put that Carney guy, business as usual. Incumbent governments are always hard to knock out. And then there's like subtleties about way politics work in my country. The biggest province in my country, if it goes one political direction, then it's almost impossible for the federal government to go that same direction. It never happens in my country. So the biggest province in my country just recently had an election and it went conservative. And the conservative guy who's actually in charge and just recently won, he's ironically enough in bed with all these WEF people. He's not very conservative at all. And ironically enough, he actually doesn't really even have that much history in the political arena. He inherited the job because his brother, who was a very popular politician in the country, died, and he got handed the position just by default, which is so. It's like, what the hell's going on in this world? The whole concept of elected officials and representing the population, all of this shit's just gone completely out the window. It's stunning. So anyway, the federal guy who now is trying to take over my country, he's in bed with the CCP. He's actually in bed with the communist government in China. So if he's a puppet of the Rothschilds, and he's a puppet of the communist government in China, excuse me. What do you think the odds are that a typical Canadian citizen has got any chance? Just more hyperinflation, steal money from the population. You as economists, right, you all should understand Alan Greenspan himself, the central bankster of central banksters, said basically inflation is the confiscation of the nation's wealth. It's just that simple. And it's happening right in front of our eyes, and there's not a damn thing any of us can do about it. Which makes you feel really depressed for this human species. So sad. Anyway, so in my humble opinion, this is actually the most important market for us to be watching right now. Not your Bitcoin, not the stock market, the bond market. And ironically enough, as I said there a moment ago, Mr. Hendry has actually stepped in, and he's a pretty damn smart guy. And he loves the idea of being long bonds here. And frankly speaking, I like it too, because as I said there earlier, just nothing else. We should see a 50% retracement of this massive sell off that we've seen in the bond market over the past 4 or 5 years. And this would just be nothing more than just technically appropriate in my eyes. And interestingly enough, if we hold these lows and we turn back up, you will see W's within bigger W's. And I think, and you can see what happened. There's a nice W there. A little bit of a head fake, right? And then boom, up we go. I don't know. Do we have to do something along those lines? What I'm just going to simply say here is if a W does come in here and we can get it on the other side of the trend line, I will turn uber bond bullish. It's just unfortunate. I don't see it just yet. So I've been watching like a hawk, but nothing yet. And keep in mind this, well, I suppose if we change this to a weekly chart, right, you see those big, ugly, nasty failures here. It is interesting how this failure, we're just sitting right at 78.6. So from a technician's perspective, ironically enough, this is exactly where we'd like to see a bottom come in. It'd be interesting to see what this trend line looks like here. Oh, yeah, it looks legit. Here's a really good example where, is this a W on the other side of the trend line? Nope. See you later. You got to be really careful about this stuff. There's another one. Is this a breakout? Is this a W on the other side of the trend line? Nope. Sorry. Is this a breakout? There's the W on the other side. No, it isn't. Back down you go. It tortures you, right? In fact, on the site, there was one stock we've been watching that's basically just riding its trend line down, exactly the same logic. Absolutely stunning, the similarity. Anyway, so I don't know whether this holds. I will say, though, that when the bond market started to break here, all of a sudden you saw Donnie himself not so cocky, not so arrogant, not so absolutely unabashedly assured of himself. And what a surprise. And I find it hilarious. I mean, this is the worst part about a guy like Donnie is, do you think that any of us can trust anything that this son of a bitch can say? I mean, honestly. And the sad part about it is you think, okay, well, he's a businessman. He's not a Wall Street insider. He's not a career politician. Maybe this time it's different. And unfortunately, I don't know whether I've updated this or not. I mean, like, quite literally, this is, you want to see what crony capitalism looks like? This is crony capitalism, where all of a sudden, mysteriously, where's our fun little comment that I made? Here we are. Mysteriously, out of nowhere, it turns out that actually, you know what? We're not gonna tariff this cell phone industry. Why? Well, it turns out that Apple, a very popular cell phone producer, actually enjoys the massive profit margins of employing slave labor, Chinese labor, to assemble their cell phones. Well, I thought the whole point of these tariffs was to level the playing field so that that kind of stuff would stop happening. And maybe a wage earner in the United States who, might want to work in the manufacturing industry and produce cell phones, maybe that's a job. I'd like to work for Apple, whatever. Maybe they have a good retirement policy. Move everything back to the United States, make America great again. Fuck you. It all just instantly dissolved with dickhead here exempts all smartphones and computers from new tariffs. Like, what a fucking joke. So it One thing I don't like about Donnie is that he really likes to work his audience, work his, mega, make America great again, really speaking to that working class, middle America. And yet, in one fell swoop, he can completely undermine everything about everything that got him elected. And, if it was prior to the election and Biden had said something, Biden had some fucking scruples. And then this stupid idiot Cammy who couldn't like put together a thought or two. If they had just simply said, well, are you going to come along and are you going to lie to the public? Are you going to say one thing, make the whole world go into an absolute tailspin, and then at the very last moment, completely gut all of this tariff talk? And to all the people, of course, are we going to mysteriously find out that Apple happened to donate $200 million to some sort of Trump slush fund, like Musk did, to buy their way in? And is that how they got exempted from these tariffs? I mean, it just stinks. And if anything, he's not going to help this transition window that we're going through here. I mean, ironically, I suppose you could make the argument that, Biden's a little bit of a nut job in that he was basically senile and, don't even hear from him anymore. He's probably sitting on a beach muttering to himself somewhere. Cammy, of course, completely disappeared. The Democrat Party is just like dissolved. He's not helping the situation here. He's actually, and then, fine, if you're going to lay down the law and say, okay, we are going to reorder the world order. Okay, well, fine, live with what your policy has done. But doing this wiffle waffling, he used to be really critical of other politicians waffling, right? You always heard that, oh, you're waffling, you're flip flopping, all that. Well, that is exactly what he's doing here. He's not helping this situation one bit, as far as I'm concerned. Not helping at all. So if the United States of America blows up, I think you got your own selves to blame for it. If Canada blows up, I mean, the way that this direction of this society is going, I could actually see China become the world hegemony, because it seems like these Western societies, they can't get out of their own way. They just do stupid things to really undermine themselves. And the saddest part about this is, of course, you guys are all enamored with Bitcoin and all this, but I actually listened to one guy this morning, of course, a gold bug. Oh, God, they're going to be insufferable now. Him saying that basically Bitcoin's just moving along the same direction as the NASDAQ. And I hate to say it, but I kind of agree. Yeah, we can pull the charts up, pretty straightforward, but just to review what I said here. And just to finish off that thought about the newsletter and this comment about consumer sentiment, it doesn't surprise me that consumers are pretty stressed out here. Mr. Trump has not helped the situation one bit. And I would imagine that the Joe Sixpack US consumer right now, especially the people that voted for him, I bet they're kind of feeling a little bit abandoned by him right now. The worst part about Trump is he's going to double down, like you always hear that talk, which means that this situation, I mean, M's and W's, right? None of you should be shocked at what you're seeing here. What are we supposed to think if we ever see the market smiling at us? So this is not getting any better anytime soon, folks. We now have to wait for some sort of long bottoming out process. Now, I don't know how long that's going to take, but we're putting in very, very powerful messages here. The consumer down in the States is not a happy camper whatsoever. And if anything, it kind of plays into my hands because I am very interested in buying some real estate down in the States. And I can see this one place in particular I was interested. There are no buyers. And they just slowly, begrudgingly lowering their price month after month after month. I might go in and throw in a really, really stink bid. And they always say, careful what you wish for. You might just get it good and hard. I might get filled on my stink bid and then a year or two later go, ah, shit, I guess I shouldn't have bought that. But no mortgages for the Beamish. Everything is cash on the barrelhead. And actually, what I really like is I might actually go into the farming business. I might actually become a farmer. So I could just grow all my own food, and we'll have our fun little trading operation. And if you want to pop on by, you can hang out with us. In fact, I had a reunion with a couple guys just last week I hadn't talked to in forever that were in our Portugal crew, and it felt so good to reconnect with those people. And I tell you, if I go and get this place and it has 5 bedrooms or whatever, all of you TRIers that are near and dear to my heart, you have a place to stay. Just come and crash. As long as the place breaks even and we pay the property tax and the insurance, I don't care. We'll grow our own food, have our own chickens, have our own goats and shit. We'll be living and interestingly enough, this is along the lines because I do think that after we get through this horrific window, I don't know how long it's going to take. It's probably going to take a good 4 or 5 years to get through this. On the other side of that window, I think actually the sky is extremely blue. And it's going to be a very, very good time to be alive. But we got to get through this 4 or 5 year window, which unfortunately, and actually I even mapped it out for everybody if you want, follow me on Twitter, all that kind of stuff. But this was the mapping out. Unfortunately, we're coming into a Benner cycle peak here. Do we peak in 25? Do we peak in 26? I don't know. It's going to be somewhere in that window. But we got to get through this 32 window. This is the really, really tough part of this entire 80-year cycle. This is the worst part of the window. So we got to get through this window. But once we're on the other side of this, heaven forbid, we're all still alive and in one piece. I think that into the latter part of the 30s and even the early part of the 40s, I think we'll be in a renaissance. And actually, it was interesting. I even listened to an interview with CZ. And, I've had a number of people on the site go, I've been watching crypto for the past 10, 15 years. Why isn't anything actually being developed? Why isn't anything actually getting done? Why isn't this stuff being implemented? Why is it that Dogecoin is still just a piece of shit meme coin that really you don't use it for anything? I just picked that one out of the random, any of them. And actually CZ was like, well, back in the 1990s, there was video conferencing, but it wasn't really that good. And everybody was like, oh yeah, we want video conferencing now. We want video conferencing now. And, through the sickness, what was that? 1995, he was making that reference. And I actually used to work for a video conferencing company back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And you could argue, through the sickness that video conferencing hit its sort of zenith into the 2020s, so that's a good 20, 30 years down the road. So if crypto came on the scene in 2008, 2009, 2010, when does that mean it hits its zenith? Is that 2028, 2030, 2035? That would I guess, yeah, somewhere around there, right? That would be that same analogy of when does crypto sort of hit mass adoption and integration in our society, if you use that same sort of video conferencing kind of analogy. Which means that, again, coming out of this trough, my hunch is into this let's call it 2040, it's late 2030s, early 2040s cycle peak. That's when actually crypto should be mass adopted. Also, too, in that same interview, I'm sure you all saw it was some Dubai guy, I don't know, somewhere around there. But he was also saying, too, that he actually felt very confident Bitcoin would hit $1 million. So if you are long Bitcoin, do you just sit here for the next 10 years, just twiddling your thumbs, just waiting for that new world once we get through this great reset bullshit crap that we have to go through. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea. Anyway, this isn't a bad piece for you to just keep out of the back of your mind looking for pivots. And interestingly enough, 2025, because I think that these cycles move every 80 years. And actually, I was even having a conversation with somebody about what did the world look like in 1865 and that world following the end of the U.S. Civil War. And interestingly enough, my country, for instance, actually came into existence in 1865. Why? The general reason is, the Canadians were worried about this big standing army down in the U.S. and Ulysses S. Grant was going to invade China. Because back then it would have been Great Britain. But anyway, but that's not actually the real reason why China actually came into existence. The real reason was because all of the provinces, and if you're an American, think states, were bankrupt. Their money was worthless. Oh, gee, that sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? And the solution was to join Confederation. That's what they called it. And it's not an accident this happened in 1865, because this is, if you look around the world, a lot of European modern nation states came into fruition or came into existence in that 1860s window. It's the Great Reset. This is what they do, the stupid bankster crooks. So anyway, the point of the matter is Canada came into existence in 1865. And of course, in that latter part of the 1860s, there was a big hyperinflationary wave as everybody got used to sort of the new world order. I suppose the ones that really felt it the worst were people like down in the southern states. And actually, I even suggested as a really, really good lesson for all of us, as a very, very good history lesson, for you to see what the negative repercussions are of these great resets. Go and watch the famous movie Gone with the Wind. And ironically enough, we might argue that the society and the culture and the world that we lived in prior to this sickness, I actually think that to a certain degree, it is also gone with the wind. It's tragic what they do. And you might even argue that the society of the 1920s, the society of the 1930s, I mean, how did any typical German feel in 1945 through 1950? Gone with the wind, right? Their whole society just brushed away. So I have no idea how this decade's going to play out, but I will tell you, in the next couple of years, we're going to have to go through a very, very difficult period. Sucks. This, of course, is why I don't have that many viewers of my channel. I constantly have people tell me, well, Brian, you're not a Gucci sweater wearer. You're not like, oh yeah, do this and get rich and you'll make tons of money. In fact, actually, I spent a lot of my time talking about the negatives of the world. But hell, at least you might as well know the truth, right? I would rather stand in front of my maker saying, hey, at least I spoke the truth. I tried to make a positive difference in this world. I tried to speak truth to these people, and I did the best I could. I mean, JoJo told me I had the opportunity to make a positive difference in this world. She didn't say I was going to. She said I had the opportunity. And unfortunately, I'm a pretty polarizing type person. So it doesn't surprise me. Actually, a lot of people in this world really don't like a guy like me. So, but having said that, hopefully, for those of you who do listen to my message, you are learning and you are seeing that history has a bad habit of repeating itself if we don't learn from history. I don't think anybody in our society has learned from the disasters of these great resets and what happened, the fourth turning and all that kind of talk. I'm not going to say anybody, but I'm going to say the great majority of the population hasn't learned at all. But there are a few of you. We got 68 people here watching this video right now. Hopefully you are learning. And when I was a broker, actually, I remember really easy. I remember sitting down with one gentleman. He was such an interesting character. And he said, I actually figured out the stock market. I figured out the secret. Do you guys want to know what the secret of the stock market is? Anybody want to know? Opportunity to see if any of you are still awake. Do you want to know how to win at the stock market? It's really simple. Happy Chicken Day from Glass Insights. Happy Chicken Day. Oh, you do? All right, cool. All right. Yeah, there's a couple of people that want to learn. All you have to do is just look back at what was happening 40 years ago and basically invest in the same thing. And it was interesting. I remember in the early 2000s, actually it was, it was like 2007, 2008, 2009, all that. And we were going through the commodity bull. And what was interesting is if you look back 40 years prior, what was the rage in the late 60s and the early 70s? It was the oil market. And the oil stocks were just going absolutely crazy. Of course, we headed into that great crisis there in the early 70s in the oil business. And 40 years later, what was really hot in China? Well, it was the oil patch. In fact, our country spent probably a good 5-10 years building out a huge infrastructure to support the oil industry. And this stupid idiot Trudeau and the liberals and the WEF people, they've literally spent the past 10 years trying to dismantle all of that infrastructure that was all invested in, which is so tragic. And that's just such a bad commentary on politics. So pathetic. So really, what was going on in the world 40 years ago? And do we see a similar pattern happening in the market? And if anything, I think I was absolutely spot on, because I've told you guys that if it was one thing I wanted to be invested in, it was Newmont Mining. And if you go back and, I hate when they do this. The irony of it all when it comes to social media is I don't even care what these people have to say. I don't give a shit about all that. And that means I'm probably using this social media completely wrong. I like to use it as a place where I can post stuff and then I know I can go some point in the future and find it. I think I should be using that Substack site that all these people like to use. In fact, we haven't talked about your girlfriend in quite a while. I wonder how she's doing these days. But she used to always talk about Substack. Remember who I'm talking about? Chris is like, oh, no, not this again. All right. I don't even know if Chris is here. He works crazy hours these days, so maybe he went off to sleep. Okay.
Danielle D. Martino Booth.
There you are. Anyway, she used to always talk about my Substack. Maybe that's what I need to do I got to do that Substack crap. Okay, how am I going to do this? Control paste. All right, so we want Newmont, and then what we want is, what the hell does it say? Any of the words, none of these words from this accounts, from these accounts. This is irritating. This is the way that I have to find my old damn posts. All right, so I had showed you back in the 1980s, yep, 40 years ago. That's what this image was, right? And there's our crazy inflation picture. And that's what I was expecting Newmont to do. And lo and behold, have you guys seen what Newmont's doing right now? So again, all you have to do is just go back and look at what's happening in the market 40 years ago. That's the secret to this. It's ridiculous how cliche this is. I wonder if anybody will remember that. And of course, 40 years ago, what was happening to interest rates, right? They were skyrocketing higher. Here's a really scary conversation, but before we get to that, where's that Newmont chart? I guess I could put it in here. And I'm so pissed off that I missed this fucking trade. Excuse my French. I was waiting for this market to get into its seasonal window before I pulled the trigger, but you can see it's already starting to take off. So this was the original tweet way back when. This is what it did back in the 1980s. So down, up, down, up, down. And I mean, you think the price is moving up now? God, you ain't seen nothing yet. So there's Newmont right there. I think we're sort of in this phase now. Maybe if we're lucky, we're still in this phase, but I don't know. But there's Newmont now. Can you see the W coming in here? Oh boy. So if this is the case, and interestingly enough, it has this very well-defined bottom, then we can start doing Foggenbaums and start coming up with some crazy ass objectives. So this market, if it does what it did 40 years ago, right? So up, down, breakout. Maybe if we're lucky, we're still in maybe this phase right here. We can just take a little bit of a pause. I'd really, really like this thing to consolidate a bit. But you can even see that we came down and did that reload zone test so perfectly. All right, look at that. Absolutely textbook. So, I mean, that's the irony of this stupid game is it's actually really simple. I know I see a lot of people overthink this stuff, but I would say that, just based on history, like that's what Newmont does, right? And you can see off of the very wide double bottom and Foggenbaum, 2.618, 4.669s. So is that where this thing has to go? 2.618, $93, 4.669, $137. Like, and actually, I do like the idea of a bull call spread here. Something like, I was just hoping I could get a little bit more time to get into this damn thing. But I wouldn't mind like buying the old high, buy that call. And even now, it's probably pretty cheap. And then writing something, I mean, that's a bit outlandish to write up top there, but even maybe writing like a 110 call or something like that. So, if you're right, the spread is like 20, $30. Could you sneak in and buy that spread for like $1 or two? I do like that trade. Also, too, if we just do a very simple connect the dots, and ironically enough, investing often is just as simple as just connecting the dots, something like that. It'd be interesting to see exactly where this thing stalls out, but look at that, right? Right into 27, 28, right into, remember we said 27, 28 is exactly when the shit is supposed to hit the fan here. I don't know what screen I had that on, maybe over here. Yeah. Ah, goodness. So, I don't know when the hell this happens. Interesting how that says 1987. So you could make the argument that, Jesus, history just repeating itself. Kevin. Actually, it's good to see you on the site again, Kevin. I missed you. But I become so damn invested with all of you, and I say stupid things like, we won't open up that can of worms, Kevin. You know what I said, but it's the truth. I honestly invest my heart and soul into each and every one of you. I really do, and I wonder whether that was a major failing of me and my sort of dream that I had of this place. I should have taken a much more colder, distant approach to all of this. Anyway, as I said, I had a really nice conversation with a couple people that I really, really liked on the site that I hadn't talked to in a year or two. We had a fun interaction there the other day. It really warmed my heart. I don't think you people understand how important you are in my life. Yeah. Anyway, all I can do is try my best. That's all I can do. Anyway, so I just gave you the secret to the stock market. Should we end the video there? I mean, there's really nothing else to tell you. It's really, really simple. And yet, ironically enough, it's almost impossible to do. That's what they always say in this stupid life. Really easy to say, impossible to do. So anyway, we got to deal with this guy for the next 4 years. And sadly, they always say, how can you tell when a politician's lying to you? And this guy, unfortunately, man, I think he was a politician before he was actually. And keep in mind, he really wasn't that good of a businessman. He ran a casino that actually they ended up blowing up eventually just to collect the insurance policy on the property because he couldn't do that good of a job running the casino. And then, he did things like Trump University. I mean, I suppose I could have done like a Beamish University and just filled you with just a load of bullshit. But then I'd be like running away from all the lawsuits and stuff that you'd be filing to get all your money back. For the record, 10 years I've been doing this website, I've come close to people saying I want my money back. But after talking to them and laying out exactly what I said, if you want your money back, this is what you have to do. And I don't think it's too much to ask. Actually, after a while, all of those people all just sort of slowly vanish away. No, you're right, Brian. I didn't do the work. Had I done the work, I would have gotten value out of it. And those people that do the work, they're like, fucking hey, man, this is life-changing shit. So ironically enough, I would make a terrible politician because I'd be like, well, you do all realize we're all bankrupt, right? And you do realize that Brian is neither a debtor nor a lender B. I don't owe anybody anything ever. Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying there, crypto. Mainly, I appreciate what you're saying. Okay, anyway, let's get off the pulpit and back to the message. So it's going to be a bit of a tough slog here. Consumers are not happy. I don't know whether we're actually ready to turn the corner back up or whether this needs more time. My hunch is we need more time. And sadly, while we're going through this, you might just find that things like gold as a proxy of, oh my goodness, the sky's falling, the US dollar, the hegemony is unwinding. This crazy politician down in the States is going to blow us all up. He's not really thinking logically. He's not thinking, well, I mean, he's taking a sledgehammer to things and he might just actually blow everything up. Let's hope to God that's not the case. Having said that, did we have any sort of roadmaps that were kind of hinted to us that there might be trouble this year? Yeah, we did. This is a pretty straightforward study. And because all of this trouble is happening right around the beginning of the year, I think the traders in the marketplace, seeing what was coming down the pike with Mr. Trump, knowing, of course, that his election platform was, I'm going to fuck everything up. I think that they priced in that this guy was going to fuck everything up. So what a shock. And fucking everything up is usually we're going to bring the stock market to its knees. So that's what's happening. I do think that, for us to actually find a bottom, we really, ironically enough, it's actually the same thing that I showed you here off of this bond chart. It's like there is an incredibly cliche process to all of this. I mean, it never changes. It's so incredibly cliche. And of course, it's what I try and teach you in the education program. Nothing ever changes. So, how does the cliche go? And actually, probably all of you watching this, because, I think I'm preaching to the choir here. I think all of you know this. It's just getting you guys to actually follow this, and including myself. I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, I'm so much better than all of you. I mean, I'm a knucklehead just as much as anybody else in the marketplace half the time. But where did I want to show you that? I think it was. Whereas there's always too many tabs open, you stupid idiot. Anyway, is it over here? Oh, we never did talk about the muni bond market. Now that's an interesting conversation. Oh boy, there is trouble brewing there. But let's go. Yeah, over here. This is what I was suggesting. So half the reason why I put those tweets out recently, should we be looking for a bottom in the bond market, is because frankly speaking, I think that we have trade location. We go back to a daily chart, you can see this a little better. We're getting reload zones within reload zones. And ironically enough, whenever I mention to you guys in the crypto space, reload zones within reload zones, of course, Brian gets all excited. And, whenever I mention this to crypto people, when I used to do those shows with Joe last year, and, I used to do it with other people. I don't know whether any of those communities have survived, but I'll tell you, the crypto space has gotten its head handed to it. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those crypto spaces have all disappeared. Got to blow my schnoz because I was crying there a little bit. So just give me a second here. Sorry about that. At least I spared you the audio. But the process never changes. Do you have trade location? And as I said, and I was saying this earlier, ironically enough, if we're professional traders, now is actually when we want to get really interested in this market. It's teetering, it's on the brink. And I suppose, ironically enough, a good trader, I guess that makes sense. Probably the trade to do here would be to go buy a bond call option. I think that's probably the smart trade, because if the market does break apart, well, so what? The call goes to zero. It's not like you're going to get margin called or anything. But if this market actually does hold in here, though, that call could be like fucking worth a fortune down the road. But anyway, we have trade location. If this was a cryptocurrency, I'd be in there nanny nibbling. You know how the story goes. Do we have indicator confirmation? I don't know. Let's pull up the indicators. Got my fun little template here. Indicators, not so much. That looks very emmy. And this just broke to new lows. So we had Willie Stupid over here. And you might have argued that there was a bit of indicator confirmation, although I hate when MACD looks like this on the divergence, because this to me says that it's unsustainable. And sure enough, yeah, there was a half decent rally, but it exhausted itself. And now we're putting in new M's and back down we go. So I think actually looking at this image, I thought originally when I looked at it this morning that we had indicator confirmation, but I think we have to actually take that off. So I think, and actually this does make sense because our template, I love this indicator. It's so freaking cool. And the guy who actually built this, I guess he was watching one of the videos recently. He was a TRIer, and he's like, well, I came back on the side. He's like, I didn't realize my script was so popular. We should make this guy famous. Anyway, MAB. But if we look at our indicators, is this confirmed divergence here? And interestingly enough, you can see up here, we had actually 3 confirmed divergences in things like MACD. I showed you that MACD histogram a second ago. Looks like a couple volume indicators were also in divergence. But we don't even have anything confirmed. We've got Willie potential, MFI potential, OBV. So we have a couple money flow indicators that are going into potential divergence. We have Willie, and is Willie stupid? Willie is not stupid, but you can see the W that's trying to form there on Willie. But I personally, when I'm day trading, I absolutely insist that I have to see Willie stupid. So I'm not even allowed to even start hunting until I see Willie stupid. So interestingly enough, I did this morning and I thought that we were at location. We had indicator confirmation, but sadly, actually, I have to take that back. So we're at location, but that's it. No indicator confirmation yet. And obviously, if we're not at indicator confirmation, then there's no way that we can be thinking price structure yet either. But honestly, and I like this, I think I'm going to use this going forward. If I'm going to create a new subscription service, we'll see what the future holds for us. I think I might call it the licks report. Do you have your licks? Because frankly speaking, this is solid. If I get this scenario here where check marks are all on board, then I've got like 70-80% odds of making money, and that works for me very well. So, point of the matter here, the bond market, we have location, but that's about it. And we got to wait for this thing to get its act together and actually settle down. The one part of the market that's very, very scary, and I have a feeling that this is connected, is there was a gentleman for quite some time. And of course, I was, anytime I saw him make an update, I was like super excited for him. Who was actually trying to prove that the entire US, and really Canada is right in there with them, the entire real estate industry is a fraud. Bam, that's a statement, eh? That it turns out that these stupid baby boomers trying to engineer higher and higher government budgets so they can pay for their stupid pet projects and woke agendas and all that crap. They've artificially bid up real estate prices and values. And isn't this interesting? Remember, I got all angry at Karen before for spamming us there on YouTube. Now I notice some cocksucker over there, and I don't know whether that's Chinese, Japanese, Korean, who fucking knows. But these cocksuckers, every single post, they always put this, and it's some stupid nonsense shill. It's remarkable how, I poked the hornet's nest, and now every single post has got this stupid bullshit. Anyway, so yeah, this guy here, I tell you, if you want a really, really good lesson in how corrupt our Western civilization is and how much of a complete and utter fraud it is, watch this video. And he is trying desperately, and he's even done videos with really popular social media guys like that George Gammon guy who seems to be super popular. Why that guy gets a million bazillion hits and everybody loves him, but me, I can get like maybe 40-50 viewers of my videos. I don't understand. I just walked you through that whole Newmont trade there, and what's the secret to the stock market? I've never heard that guy talk about that kind of stuff before. But anyway, George Gammon, super popular, I guess because he's so handsome. But Brian can't find a viewer. I mean, let's just see. This is an interview that he did. Let's see how many people watch this video. And there wasn't any trade ideas, nothing really. It was just an interview with this guy.
Constitutionally.
Oh, actually, that's a different social media guy. But let's see how many views these are. 400. Is that what that says? 465,000 views. Holy shit! In a wet dream, I'd have that many followers. Now, how many of those little notifications do you think are going to be spam from the Chinese bots and stuff like that, telling you to go buy some stupid numbered cryptocurrency, or, oh, I lost my seed wallet and here is my phrase. I mean, I don't understand this social media. Obviously, I'm doing it completely wrong. maybe this was the George Gammon one. But anyway, just the point being that if this gentleman can actually move forward, this might single-handedly completely destroy. Oh, this is a different guy. This guy is a Canadian social media guy. This guy never, I mean, God, if you see him now, he looks thin as a rake. He looks like he's starving to death. But, there you go. 110,000 views on his video. But anyway, this is the guy I'm talking about. And interestingly enough, he's just a very small real estate developer in the state of Texas. But hats off to him. He is like literally trying to bring the entire con job of our Western civilization property tax scam that's going on. He's trying to bring it to its knees. And frankly speaking, he's right. Property prices should not indefinitely go up. The only reason why they're being continually reappraised higher is to fund these municipal governments' spending agendas. And this full circle, just watch this video if you need to, either one of those videos. And I thought there was one that he did with George Gammon as well, but I don't know, maybe it's lost in my feed somewhere. But the point here is if you actually look at what's coming under attack in the bond market in particular, it's things like the municipal bond market. And these people are the ones that basically have fixed real estate prices. And the way that they justify their greater and greater budgets is to continually, relentlessly, illogically keep reassessing property values higher and higher and higher. And it makes no sense whatsoever. And there doesn't seem to be anything any of us in the public can do about this, because these silly governments, they sort of act like despots. But this guy here, he's trying to take the course, the municipalities to court. And frankly speaking, I think he has a very legit case. Now, in my country, you could very easily have the government just come along and say, fuck you. Yeah, you don't like it? Sorry, nothing you can do about it. Go suck my dick. Excuse me for my horrible language, but that's how bad this is. Like them acting the way that they're doing, they're basically slapping every single one of us in our faces. And that's why these real estate prices have gone up so much, is because it's all corrupt. It's all a scam. It's all a fraud. And I have a sneaky suspicion that the bond market, and especially the municipal bond market, who is basing all of this, that this is that con job of ever rising real estate values, and as a result, ever rising tax revenues. I think that they're going to get a very rude awakening here, where some court says, you know what, sir, you're right. All of these municipalities have actually committed utter and outright fraud. And this is a theft, and it needs to be corrected. And this, my friends, is that visual representation. You can see these lows have been taken out. So we are treading on extremely dangerous ground here. I might argue that, ironically enough, actually, this is one of the concepts we teach in our education program. Swing high to swing low. This trend line is actually, in my opinion, the valid trend line of this market. Some might even say that actually this swing high to this swing low is your valid trend line in this market, which is pretty damn scary, eh? Because my hunch is that this trend line, oh yeah, what a surprise. You can see that it lines up nicely with the 1.618. Oh boy, this is scary stuff. So in a weird sort of way, I'm thinking about going and buying real estate down in the States, but I could very easily see that this actually turns into your next major financial crisis, where the municipal bond market actually starts falling apart. Fascinating. I mean, this is absolutely fascinating. This is, you can't write better fiction than reality. Nobody could have predicted this to happen. And yet, technical analysis, TA 101, one lower high, two lower highs, three lower highs. I think you have a very legitimate technical setup to be short muni bonds from right there. And that's working. Interesting. Have we hit the move stop to scratch level? If we have, unfortunately, that means that I can't join this trade now. And in a weird sort of way, I think you might actually find, I think we're heading into some sort of short-term crisis, almost like apex here. I wouldn't be surprised if this actually has to come down, dip down a little bit lower, which creates the divergence in our indicators, right? You actually see the indicators do that. And then that sets a base for some sort of counter trend rally. I mean, I couldn't short this here. And the fact that we already hit the 50% level of this massive bot means had I short this, and if it does come back to this level, I have to hop off at scratch. But regardless of that, I think everybody watching this video should appreciate there is some serious technical damage done in this bond market, like serious damage. Now, what's interesting about this, like I said, I think we're getting very close to some sort of short-term inflection point, unless, of course, and you've already seen it. Like, I actually think that this news here is actually the catalyst that marks sort of this inflection, where Donnie here is actually starting to balk. So my hunch here is that whatever the crisis was, the fact that Donnie is backing away, obviously people that are far more powerful in this world than Donnie reached out and said, smarten up, you stupid fuck, you're fucking us all. And I think he got religion, because I thought it was interesting. Late last week, he had a press conference where he was like, oh, the people are getting ippity in the market. So I decided that it was the smart idea to back off a little bit. Well, I don't think it was ippity. I think the people that actually are much bigger than him that said, you don't know what kind of forces you're playing with here, you stupid idiot. You better smarten up. And so as a result, now my hunch here is the crisis itself, I think, is kind of passing. But at the same time, too, now we have to go through the process of actually getting the public to freak out and the public to start saying stupid things like, oh, I'll sacrifice my life to save capitalism. You've heard me say that before. But that actually marks the bottom, right? And what I think has to happen here is I think we actually have to play around with these lows a little bit, get the politicians freaking out, get the public, saying it's the end of the world, and we will do anything to save the market kind of idea. And then the market actually goes and bottoms and we start the next leg higher. So that's what I think's going on here. Long story short, I know that was very winded. My apologies. Interesting, when we actually looked at the market and yesterday, Saturdays, I actually like to spend the day just surfing through the engine. I would talk to you about crypto right now, but it looks like our engine's a little sick with regard to crypto. I did reach out to the team and asked whether they could maybe see if we can fix the problem with the crypto on the engine right now. It kind of bums me out, but it is what it is. Hopefully Stuart can figure this out. There are a couple of stocks that the engine, when I was just surfing through the engine, what I like to do is just simply surf through. You can follow basically the S&P 500 and the TSX 300, which is 800 different stocks for you to consider investing in on the site. And on Saturdays, I just like to surf through the site and just see if there are any names that jump out at me. Let's see if I can find the page I want to show you. Which one is it? Is it this one? Yeah, over here. So I'll just surf on here. I'll check out the something like the TSX composite, the S&P 500. We can do both of these. This is the weekly commodity trend survey. And anybody who's watching this and just has some questions about this, this is nothing more than just simply asking where are the assets relative to their 52-week high and 52-week low. So if we look at the TSX Composite, for example, this is the Canadian stock market. So you can see 52-week high, 52-week low. What is the 50% level? Then I ask, what is the weekly 13 EMA and what is the weekly 30 SMA and what is their relationship? If both of those happen to be bullish, and we're, i.e. 13 EMA is higher than the 30 SMA, that means that short-term momentum is stronger than medium-term momentum. And the price is below the 50% level. So you can see 50% level here says 130, and right now the price is 94. Well, that to me says that it's cheap relative to the 50% level, and the moving averages are still pointing bullish. So as a result, it gets a very high score, and 6 is the highest score you can have. So there are a bunch of names you can see here in Canada that look very interesting from that perspective. This isn't a bad shopping list. I have been interested in this LAC. I've been watching it very closely. And actually one name that jumped out at me, that I saw just recently was WinPack. I don't know where it is on this list. But when I was surfing through, another way I like to do this is, I can't seem to find it just off the top of my head here. Why I can't see it. Anyway, another way that I like to do this is I'll come in and off of the overview, I can look at the broader market just from a daily perspective. Keep in mind, this is a weekly perspective. But off a daily perspective, I'll just come in and ask, what does the short-term momentum look like? The breadth indicator. A lot of this stuff, especially for Canada, you're probably not that interested in. But just simply surfing through, all I do is I just click View Grid, and now I can look at the entire Canadian stock market in a grand total of about, I think it's about 5 or 6 pages. 5 pages, right? And you can see this is A through C. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to load, but really all I'm looking for is I want to see assets that are trading substantially below their 200 SMA. So if you think about that weekly 50% rule, it's the same logic. And I want to see W's in price. And so all I do is I just surf through just looking. This one looks kind of interesting. Yeah, I might take a look at that in a bit. But what I did, just to make, move this story forward quick, and anybody can do this. You can look at the entire market really, really quickly. What I want to see is I want to see that, the stock market just made lower highs and lower lows. Interesting that Brookfield management, that's the asshole that's trying to take over my country. This is his company. And what I want to see is I want to see names that are not making lower lows here. So, something like this Birch Cliff Energy. All right, that's something definitely to look at. Did not make lower lows. Something like Bank of Montreal, the banks, stay the fuck away from the banks, right? Making lower lows. There's that Brookfield Asset Management, Brookfield Corporation making lower lows, stay the fuck away from that. But, just scrolling through, all I do is I just, Saturday mornings, it's really simple. Doesn't take a lot of time. Maybe about a half an hour or so to look at the entire Canadian stock market, just looking. Show me assets that did not make lower lows, right? That relatively speaking, they're relatively strong, and that actually are starting to form W's. And, ironically enough, the names that come up on a screen like this are actually kind of boring. So, and that's often what happens. Like, good investment ideas are actually kind of boring. It's interesting. One of our site members actually is long this Dundee Precious Metals from the bottom. Man, he's done really, really well investing in gold. So way to go, Michael, you badass. But let's see if I can scroll through here. Unfortunately, the name that I'm most interested in starts with a W, so it's at the very end of this list. I don't know whether I can actually scroll through here quickly. Let's see what happens. I'm going to blow this up. There's 3. Where are the W's? Just so you see what a name that I'm interested in looks like. There's the S's. Oh, there's a W. Oh, actually, I think I probably went right by it. There it is, WinPack. So you see, lower lows, stay away from it. I mean, at some point, this Tilray is going to be a buy, but I don't see any W's there. Lower lows, stay away, stay away. Stay away, stay away. Ooh, that might be an interesting one to look at, but it's actually not cheap relative to its 200 moving average. So I was going to say gold stocks. I really don't think it's a good idea to chase these gold stocks. You missed the trade. You should be long from down below. But what I wanted to show you, what does a name that Brian's interested in? Oh, hello. Look at that chart. Now, isn't that interesting? Did not make lower lows, is actually turning back up. 13 EMA crossing through 30 SMA, and look where the 200 period moving average is, all the way up here. So this actually, to me, looks like a name I could actually go and invest in. And hint, 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 I said on the site, geez, I think I'm going to go buy a little whack of this tomorrow. Good looking chart, really good looking. And I love when these W's are very wide, broad based, right? This is over a period of, basically a month. Moving averages crossing bullishly, and you also get this cute little handle. So you could argue that this is like a cup, right? There's the cup, and here is the handle right here. So a breakout through this high right here. Actually, I might even argue that high right there is a really nice looking buy signal. So I'm probably going to go buy some of this for my retirement account tomorrow. And what business are these guys in? They're in the business of packaging. Boring. And why did the stock sell off here at last February, March? Because they just paid out a $3 a share dividend to shareholders because they're just sitting on a mountain of money and they didn't know what to do with it. So they just paid it out to shareholders. So the market had to sort of digest that payout. And of course, anybody who bought the stock to get that payout, they'll get the hell out after the payouts happen. And then the market goes in bases here, does not make lower lows, and now starting to threaten to spit out weekly W's. Absolutely love it. This is exactly what I want to see if I'm interested in investing. And that was the only one in the entire Canadian stock market that looks like that. And that's the only thing I'm interested in buying right now. Everything else, like this precious metals, I can't touch something like that with a moving average, 200 period moving averages all the way down there. Can't even look at it. Ironically enough, what's Brian interested in? And I did exactly the same thing down in the States because we also follow the S&P 500. So we can pull up the entire S&P 500. This is 11 pages of stocks to look at. And remember, all we're looking for is that image. I just put it away, sorry. But you get the idea. I found a couple names down in the States that look like that as well. Now, the interesting thing is again, the names that I found down in the States, where's our Discord channel? Right over here. The names down in the States, I won't put you through that whole torture, but I did find them here. Copart, look at that chart. Now, this is interesting. It's actually bottomed through the 200 SMA, so it is a bit expensive. But again, did not make lower lows through that whole correction period. Broader stock market, tech stocks look like shit. Copart actually went and put in a weekly W. And if you look at Copart on a weekly chart, holy crap. I mean, you tell me, what does this look like? Has anybody ever seen this chart? Where can I do this? Oh, God. Oh, okay, that's too bad. Actually, you know what? We'll save the rest of the stock screener signals that I found over the weekend for tomorrow. I'll just finish off with where the hell can I do this? Just do this here. That Copart chart, and this will be a good trivia piece for here. So you tell me, Copart. What chart pattern does this look like? Has that Beamish guy ever talked to you about this chart pattern? Have you ever seen a chart that looks like that before? What is that called? Ironically enough, you have divs on both sides. I guess they're just potentials now. If they turn into a confirm, then we better be careful. But who can tell me what the hell is that? And is that a bullish sign? I mean, I don't know whether this thing's going to spit out a buy signal, but what I would just simply say is you can actually, really simple trading strategy is you just buy on a stop on a move through that high. What's that high? Oh man, Beamish got to get out of specs. 60.31. This is a US stock right there in your face. Tomato paste. Anybody know what that is? I don't know what OM is, DMAC. OM. Is anybody watching this video know what the hell that is? Anyone? Gee whiz. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Glass Insights. I'm not going to tell you. What I'm going to say is that is an absolutely incredibly powerful signal. And it validates what we're seeing out of the site and the engine whenever I want to see, especially when market's correct, I want to see names that do not make new lows and that turn around and go and put in big fat W's like on the weekly price charts. And this one happened to be a weekly key reversal. You don't see that every day, folks. All right, so I'm going to leave the ideas, and there was another key reversal, hint, that I posted yesterday. And actually, interestingly enough, I think the names we were interested in, I'm interested in, are industrial packaging, gravel and aggregate, and auto parts. Not very sexy, folks. Nothing to do with the tech industry right now, that's for sure. Okay. Unfortunately, getting back to the newsletter here, there's not a hell of a lot I can really get all excited about with regard to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's going to do what it does, and I think it's following along very closely to the tech sector. So you could make the argument, I think Bitcoin's been securitized. We've had that conversation lots. I think Bitcoin in particular, I really did not want to turn bearish unless I actually started to see the market lose things like 30 SMAs, and 30 SMA and 13 EMAs actually cross bearishly, which you can see these moving averages have basically come into conjoining. You can see it happen last year, and we had to go through quite a wrangling here to get these darn things to turn back up. And this now is the window where, if this thing's going to dump, now it's got permission. We just made a lower low this week. So and you can see the opening of this weekly bar was above the previous week's closing low. So we can't even make the argument that there's even potential for key reversals. It's an up bar, great, but we just made a new low. So at the very least, we have to wait for some sort of consolidation, test this low, maybe test these candle body lows, and then turn back up and start making a W. Keep in mind, we already have M's working. And if we look at the lower time frame chart, we did have a cute little W that did form off of this. But I have a feeling that kind of has played itself out. And, I did have a conversation with people on this site over Friday and stuff. I actually saw a higher time frame bot set up, and so I strapped it on for the site people, just nothing more as a demonstration for them. But I'm not. I didn't fault people who saw the W that came in there late last week and said, well, Brian, I got a bullish setup here and your crypto index is pointing up. So I think I'm going to go and buy this W and take my chances. And as I said there a second ago, I actually don't fault you on that. So, weekly study, I still think we're heading into some sort of apex peak. But as Tom Lee has said repeatedly, and I totally agree with him, I do like the idea that this correction needs to come down to 50, 60K. Well, let's say 60, 70K, and then we turn up. So this conversation, nothing has really changed there. On the weeklies, as I said, we are now flirting with breakdown here. These moving averages do cross. Usually when they cross, we actually get a bit of a kickback. So you can see how these things crossed here, and we got sort of a kickback into the moving averages. My hunch here is that that's what this rally is right now. It's the kickback of these moving averages crossing. And if we do start rolling over, we do start painting lower highs and lower lows, then I would expect this selling trend to continue. And I don't see anything changing other than the fact that Mr. Trump has come out and completely gutted his whole tariff argument by exempting all the cell phones and all the computers, which of course, like I said, Apple basically does all its slave labor out of China. So to all intents and purposes, the whole tariff thing is just a load of horse shit. And it's all just a political con job as far as I'm concerned. And the problem, I showed you the consumer confidence number. The problem is that Donnie has really kicked the shit out of consumers and their confidence. And I think he's kicked the shit out of the world's confidence in the US as sort of the hegemony. He's done some serious damage here, folks. I'm sorry, but he really has. So ironically enough, you can see the bear ABCD that I have, and you can see where my target objective is. And I do like the confluence of these trend lines and Tom Lee's talk, 60 to 70,000. I could see some sort of panic dump into higher time frame mountain man levels, a real test of these lows before this correction is done. You're not going to like that, but I'm sorry. So if we actually look at the lower time frame chart, I've been talking to everybody on the site now for a while about this triangle that I think is dominating price. And the triangle comes to a resolution here. Oh, gee whiz, a week after my birthday. You can see how the price actually has lost the lows of the triangle, but then recaptured them. But we're still making lower highs and lower lows. Well, I hate to say it, but I think that I don't see any change in this. And what a surprise. We rallied right back up to the top of the triangle, this downtrend line. And it looks to me like we just got rejected hard off of that level. It hasn't confirmed yet. Give us an M, give us an outside downside key reversal, give us a bearish engulfing bar, give us a fractal, give us a head and shoulders top, something. That'll be the confirmation. Right now, it's nothing more than just a quick little railroad tracks off this daily chart. But what I will say is that because this is one lower high, two lower highs, three lower highs, and we had this bearish continuation pattern working, I was like, I really should have a short off of this 25 level. And if they can go and break these moving averages, break above this high up here, fine, I'll take the short off, no big deal. And hopefully we're back into the bull. What does that look like? Well, that looks like this. So this short, I told the community that I wanted to have this short on off of the 25 level. So that was, we had one lower high, two lower highs, three lower highs. We dumped, and I was like, well, I got to get this short on. So I worked the order and got filled there. And as I had said there a moment ago, some people on the site were like, well, Brian, gee whiz, this looks like a very wide W. Don't you want to buy that? And you see where the 50% level is of this entire range. That would have to be my technical objective. And what I noticed, and it might get hit, it wouldn't surprise me if it did. What I noticed, though, was that if I had taken that long off of that huge W, then the 2-to-1 risk reward, and it would have to be off of that high there. 2-to-1 risk reward, which I really like all of my trades to have that at least minimum. Is that short or long? Maybe I got the wrong one here. Long. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. So there's the stop. Where's 2 to 1? 2 to 1 means that I have to get that level to justify this trade. Maybe, but we've got all these highs up here. Remember, I had said I want this market to punch through these highs to negate this bearish structure that's in place. So, ironically enough, this counter trend rally that we're seeing off of the lows here, I do think that there was a trade that set up off of this W, boink, 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 and 50% levels. That produces a 4 to 1. Well, where the hell's 2 to 1 then? Which is what I think, generally speaking, you should have as like a minimum objective to justify a trade. Well, 2 to 1 is right into there. And hello, you can see that trade is now done. If you did take this W, congrats, love it, awesome, good job. Because I do think off of like, if we go down to like, say like an hourly chart, I do think to a certain degree that is in place. So there is that W. There was the bullish divergence. You can see. I don't know whether that was a lower low though. You know what? I think that was a higher low. So no div there. But I do kind of like this kind of price action. You see there's a cute little div right there off of these lows down to this low. You can see W's came in on Willie. Willie was stupid over here. So if you were sort of looking for some sort of W, I got a location. I've got the market now giving me indicator confirmation. Now I want to hunt longs. If you got long here, okay, but I don't really see any structure. If you dip down here and you're like, okay, this is my opportunity. You know, I like to hunt reload zones in reload zones, like that kind of talk right in there. All right. Well, you know, W's are starting to form, and you could even argue that this is a W. Down, up, down, did not go through that low, turned back up. It's tough. I'm not going to say this is an easy trade, but nonetheless, there's a big fat W. There's W's in OBV, W's in RSI, W's in Willie. You know, years gone by, we used to call this, we call it a market structure lovers signal. So I can see that lower time frame trade. And if anybody had taken this long, I'm cool with that. You can see 2 to 1s have been hit now. And what's interesting is on the 2 to 1, I think this was the trade. And on that 2 to 1, we look at our momentum indicators and oh boy, that looks awful. What the hell happened here? I mean, that is as confirmed a bear div as confirmed bear divs get. Yuck. Also, too, and this might be an interesting conversation going forward, but I've talked to you guys and girls and house clients repeatedly about what should we expect when you see MACD coil like this. Usually you get like a move violently in one direction and then a move violently the other direction. I don't know how this is going to play out. Are we still in that move down direction? What I will say is that right there is definitely confirmed bearish divergence. Market made higher highs, but the market's making lower highs in MACD. Then if we look at Willie, oh boy, Willie got nice and stupid. Same thing, huge divs there. Uh-oh. And of course, in the actual moving average, we see a big fat M. Yuck. So whatever the momentum push was, and I think I remember when I was going to bed last night, or maybe when I was waking up, I can't remember. I don't know whether it was yesterday or first thing this morning. There's one site gentleman who posts quite a bit of stuff on the site, and he had posted this morning on the hourly chart. I don't have anything bullish here. And frankly speaking, you know, if we use the multiple RSIs to frame trades, you know, the first M in RSI, that's to stop the bulls, right? Or stop the bulls. Then the second M in RSI, and I think the second M actually is this one, that's actually a trade setup. So if you play RSI off of this hourly chart for a trade setup, I think you actually are told to go short on that break right there. Multiple M's right there. So what does that look like? That was shorting the corn right there. That's not a bad trade. So if I was like sharp shooting this short, like when I day trade, I trade off of the 1 minute charts because the market's so freaking volatile. You have to go down to that lower time frame to be able to find the risk windows because I only like to risk 13 ticks on a ES trade. And that's on the micros too. So I have to like literally be watching the market tick by tick by tick, looking for those structure signals. So this trade, this huge bot, that's a daily setup. I think I might argue that if I had seen this daily setup and then said, okay, I want to sharp shoot my entry and I really want to pick my levels because I'm trading off of like the 5-minute chart, 10-minute chart, 15-minute chart. Well, I hate to say it, folks. I think this was short trade location. Good old reload zones. I mean, the good part about this is none of this shit ever changes, folks. So reload zones, trade location, multiple M's in your RSI, Willie Stupid, bear divs in MACD, definitely have your indicator confirmation. And, I don't know, give me any kind of price structure to get short. That in itself, it's not really the best one, but it is technically a shooting star. And maybe you just said, screw it, Brian. I'm not going to take that single candle RSI signal, but I will go in short that M, up, down, up, failure, see you later. So I might argue that the trade that's working right now off the lower time frames is to be short that line in the sand, Brian favorite fib, that level right there. In fact, that kind of looks like a head and shoulders top there as well. So I think that's what's going on here on the corn. Yes, I do have this higher time frame short working. It is underwater, but to just freak all of you out immensely, I think the lower time frame trade has already played itself out. And actually, I wouldn't fault you if you'd said, well, okay, Brian, I'm going to take 50% profits at 2-to-1 objective getting hit, which actually came in like right here. I'll move my stop to scratch on the remaining, and I'll just see where the wind blows us. I don't know where it's going to blow us, and it's going to blow us wherever the hell it blows us. And I'm still long, and my stop is sitting at scratch. I wouldn't have a problem with that whatsoever. So just understand that. If you're playing lower time frame setups, I actually think there was a long, but I think it's played itself out. And at the very least, I would hope that if you did play this W, you have taken partial profits. Your stops are at scratch right now on whatever you got left, and you're just seeing what the fuck's going to happen going forward. Having said that, I'm not in that trade. So if you were in that trade, way to go. You're awesome. I'm in this short that literally got filled here. Whoops, where did my trade metric go? Oh, I screwed it up. Clean that up. Where were we? Okay, there. Is that it? Oh, it's close. My stop is all the way up there. So really, I'm not in any hurry here to do anything whatsoever. And my target, and this is going to make you all puke. Sorry, everybody. In fact, actually be interesting to do a Foggenbaum off of that. Well, let's see where that takes us. So we'll go there, and we'll go there, and then we'll go there, and we'll go there. All right. Now let's, interesting, we came down into 1.618, Julian's level there on the chaos, and we bottomed. So my hunch here is that we have to punch down through here. If we do punch down through there, you can see the bot setup. I get to move my my stop to scratch if we punch through these lows. You can see how close it is. 2.618, that would be my next logical stop. And probably if you did something like trend line off of these lower lows, there to there, that's probably a nice objective there into Friday, the 25th of April. Which means that we could easily spend the next week just slowly rolling over here and then heading back down. And actually, this I like because that is a descending wedge. So ultimately, when we hit the fruition of the descending wedge, that should actually set up a buy signal. Right? Where is that? That's all the way over here. So move stop to trailing comes in there at 4669, which I think makes sense. And if we, punch through these lows, where's 4669 off of this M that I just painted there for you? Oh, gee whiz, it's sitting right at my bought objective, which unfortunately, like I said, none of you are going to like this, is basically sitting there around 55,000. And I like that as a number because I think Tom Lee is right. I think 50 or 60 to 70,000 is your floor, but this is crypto. So would it not surprise us to see something like there's your anticipated floor, right? That's Tom Lee's objective. But you see something like price goes doink and then instantly bounces right back from that, makes your bottom, and then we start working our way higher. I could easily see that kind of scenario. So that's my sort of forecast for Bitcoin. And I know all of you are kind of like, oh, I didn't want to hear that, Brian. Fuck you. But hey, I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass. And the way this thesis gets broken is just go and take out this market structure. And interestingly enough, this structure, it has a huge wick in it. How many trapped bulls do you think are in that wick? And if we can somehow rally back up into that wick, do you think they're going to want to get the hell out of there? So it is interesting how I've got that big honking wick to defend me, but that's not even the top. The top is actually over here. So my stop has to be one tick above this high. So if this is a bull and we're ready to rock and roll, fine, just go and clean this level out, and then all of my bearish enthusiasm vanishes. All right, that's pretty easy. Hopefully that makes it nice and simple for you. For whatever it's worth, I originally was supposed to buy some Ethereum down here at 78.6. That was the plan all along. Remember all last year I talked to you about being short off the top here, and then I got euchred out of that short right up here, and I never strapped it back on. What a doofus. But I had told you I had this stink bid working off of 78.6 forever. So I was a little disappointed in myself that I chased a bullish setup in here, and it was working for a while, but I did get stopped out. It's the way it goes, trader's life. And now, interestingly, I saw the market come right back down to my 78.6, and I was like, what the fuck? Brian, get your fucking ass back in there. So, you know how much Brian loves his 78.6. And you know how all I'm doing is I'm just coming along and working stinky bids in reload zones. I mean, I must have bought a bucket load of these altcoins, all doing basically exactly the same thing. Just working stink bids in reload zones. Where's my crypto ideas? So, interestingly enough, I had a bid working on this guy, and well, it looks like I should be filled. I don't know whether it came down here. It looks like it came down here overnight. It looks like I should be back in this thing. I also bought another one while I was moving, and this is the great part about working stink bids. I bought this one. Oh, actually, hey, that's going nice direction. Awesome. So I had a stink bid working on this guy right against these lows down in here. There was a specific reason why I had the bid working at that level. But anyway, I got an absolute gift here the other day. So I'm still buying, and I buy levels. Not quite sure. There's a reason why. And I'll have to, I posted this in the Brian's trade room. It turns out I got the fill on like the 6th or 7th. But I didn't actually notice it until I looked at the account 2 or 3 days ago, and I was like, oh, better do that right up. So anyway, that's kind of a nice treat. But I'm still in here buying, right? And as I said there just a moment ago, we've actually finally come down into the level that I should be long Ethereum from. So when I get back from Liam, I'll go and actually I could probably even just see here, but I got to go log in and all that kind of stuff. And I don't want to do that here. Because I'm actually running out of time, aren't I? It's 1 o'clock. It only takes me 20 minutes to get to Lily. So I still technically have about a half an hour so I can work with you guys. So I'm not going to do it on this screen because I might just give you information I'm not supposed to do. But I am going to log in here and just see whether I got my fill on Ethereum here. And hopefully I did. Where are we here? All right, survey says, and I'm happy to be long Ethereum from that 78.6. You know how much I love 78.6s. So, yep, I'm long 1571 even. Way to go, Brian. So, it's interesting because on Litecoin, so actually I have to do this trade right up now. So anybody on the site, just be forewarned that I did step in on the buy side on Ethereum off that 78.6. And I'll have to do the write-up of the trade when I get back from Lily tonight. But this was kind of a fun one because there was already Ethereum in the account. And is this the trade? No, over here. And I loaded up the Ethereum account, and I saw that we were long here, and I saw this M come in here, so I liquidated the position. And of course, what does the market do? It rallies right in my face because remember we were short last year. So, but I said, look at Brian, he loves the 78.6s. So if this thing can come back down here to my 78.6, I'll just go and buy the position back. So I have officially done that. I liquidated right in here, and now I've just gone and bought the position right back down here where I would ideally like to be long. This is exactly where I want to be long. In nanny nibble, nothing huge. I think the trade was about $1,000 or something like that. But nonetheless, I'm very happy to be long from the 78.6 here. Do I actually have a trade set up here? No, not yet. What I do like though is you can see we do have MACD divs working. This low's held. Willie is stupidly oversold, so I'm okay there. And you can see W's are trying to form on these momentum indicators. So what I would say, 78.6, we definitely have location, right? If we're thinking the licks, got to get my licks in. So location, yes, we have that. Indicator confirmation, I think we're still a bit early there. And then if we don't have indicator confirmation just yet, I think we'd give that like a half grade. Have to wait for these indicators to all start turning up. I'd love to see MACD turn positive again. RSI put in a second W here. Willie looks pretty agreeable there. OBV looks agreeable, but let's get back above that trend line or the moving average or resistance line. And then we can start thinking about W's coming in. And I hate to say it, but this thing ain't going to start trending higher until we actually get a full-blown W on the other side of this trend line. So I have no idea what this is going to look like. Hell, it might even have to look like this. I don't know. I mean, I doubt it's going to look like that, but I'm not going to predict what this is going to look like. All I'm going to say is, you know how much Brian absolutely loves his 78.6s. So I'm very, very happy that I got that position back on. And now we don't even say stink bid. We'll say bought position back at BFF/line in the sand /78.6. All right, cool. Actually, I'm really happy that I got that back. And let's keep in mind where stupid politicians and their dumbass sons, or horribly corrupt politicians and their very smart sons fucking the public over for their own personal benefit. I'm going to go with choice 2 there. I should be selling half on a double when all those suckers get back to break even, and I will be more than happy to rub that in their faces that I am establishing risk-free positions just so you guys can get back and get out of your idiot trades buying at $3,000 plus Ethereum. So wish me luck on that. All right, so finish off our analysis of crypto. Along the same lines as Ethereum, I still think Bitcoin's a little bit expensive. And interestingly enough, I think if we pull up our weekly commodity trend survey, and actually we can even pull up crypto. The only problem here, though, is that, and I don't know why, something happened here where the engine stopped updating half of the names in our crypto space on March 31st. Boo. So if the engine was operating normally, right, this thing would just be humming along, tickety-boo, and we'd be giving you great levels with notifications of attractive and unattractive and all that kind of stuff. But you can even see this was as of the 30th. Bitcoin here, where was Bitcoin? Do you see Bitcoin on here? So there it is, BTC. It was still sitting at meh. So that was where the price was 78,000. We're now sitting basically at 84,000. So 78,000 was down in here. So if I'm going to have a meh reading a Bitcoin at 78,000, then there's no way in hell I'm going to have a buy signal at 84,000. It's still, as far as I'm concerned, too expensive. So I can't really get excited about Bitcoin. But it was interesting. You saw on there that Ethereum actually was in the attractive zone, right? There's ETH, attractive. And that was at 1576. So, and that was basically my fill. So Ethereum's still sitting basically at that price, which I think is attractive. So I'm very happy being long. 15, what did we say? It's 1576. So we're sitting here 1571 is where I got filled. So it definitely, as far as I'm concerned, this is actually very investable. I don't think we quite have a buy signal just yet, but nanny nibbles, little old ladies, buying against bottom ends of ranges, buying against previous lows, totally fine with you going ahead and picking some Ethereum up here, which is quite different because when we were sitting up here, man, I fucking lost it when I saw that stupid Trump idiot talking about buying Ethereum up here. So anyway, there you go. And I think that a lot of the crypto market looks exactly like this. Total sitting, it dipped down into reload zones. It has perked up a little bit. You saw Bitcoin jump up there. Obviously, Bitcoin has a huge influence on this total. Probably if we looked at like the total 3, we probably see that it's on its knees. Here's total 3. Let's see what it looks like. Reload zones. Let's see. It's also enjoyed a pretty nice bounce, so maybe not. Let's go reverse. Total 3's even come up a bit. So I couldn't even, total 3 would be up, meh. But I don't mind if assets are, yeah, actually that's the case. But if assets are at or below reload zones, of course, that Beamish guy, he's going to love that shit. I eat that shit up every day. It's good. Somebody get a soundbite of that one. So, like I said, I had another one, another stink bid. I have about 4 or 5 stink bids still working to buy on a few of these names, but actually I was pleasantly pleased to see that stink bid. And this is why I like working stink bids, because sometimes you get these absolute gifts. So anyway, that was a real treat seeing that I got that fill down there. Super sexy. All right. I know, actually, it's interesting how there are little ones that are trying to reestablish themselves. This guy here I bought near the POC, probably should have bought down at value low. I think I've told you before. I mean, last Friday, I went through about 50% of these names. I'll probably do the same thing in the daily brief tomorrow. I could very easily see that this thing works its way back, then we come down, then we go that, and then you break out, and you look back in hindsight and you see the damn thing bottomed off 78.6. That's it happens so often for me. So let's see what happens. Somebody take a screenshot of that and remind me to look at it 2 or 3 months down the road. A lot of red here in the space. So I don't think we're at the bottom yet. I showed you what I'm expecting out of Bitcoin. So I still think that this stuff's got to work its way, of course, into good old Brian's birthday. That's when I'm thinking this stuff bottoms. And that sort of also plays into this idea that we have to see the stock market itself calm down here. We have to see this tech stock start to bottom out. And then we have to actually see W's come in. And then we can start looking for our crazy moon ass price action. And I think it's going to be a while, folks. I don't think this is going to happen tomorrow. You know, we talked about Bitcoin and the tech stocks looking very similar. Does that not sort of look like Bitcoin? Insanely volatile. Don't get me wrong. Terrible place to do a trade right here, right now. But what I think has to happen here for this to actually bottom, it's the same thing that we talk about all the time. So do we have location here? Not here, but against these lows, maybe. You know, if anything, this probably was a dead cat bounce into 50% levels. I think probably like location wise, it's probably this low and this low that we're playing with. So that's not bad. You know, trend line support, horizontal support and resistance. This looks like maybe it's going to be an old Wyckoff check. Yeah, what a surprise. Interesting off of this entire volume range. This looks to me like it's going to be like there's 50% of the entire range, but I think, you know, maybe we bottom somewhere in here. And what is this? This is like Colin and his pump chasers. And hopefully Colin's gotten back to doing his classic TA. I'd like to see that. Boom, right into that window. Okay. You know, Wyckoff checks, Colin pump chaser zone, top of value, big notch. So I think location wise down in here, it isn't a terrible idea. I suppose we could also do like A, B, C, Ds. I think that's basically what that event was. Let's see, is it? If we go bot setup, doink, so 33 to 66. And we go clone, and then the bot trade is going to be off of that high. And then we do bot trade levels. There you go. Where is this high? Oh, it's pretty close. So this is just a 50% bounce. So don't worry about too much about that. Something like that. Just eyeballing this just for sake of time. So the short level's there. Yuck. I mean, I don't think there really was a short. It was just so violent. But does it make sense why the market pivoted there? I think so. I don't think it's rocket science. That was the old Wyckoff check level. Again, logical. Market was absolutely puking out, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, blah, blah, blah. You know, if we do ever get down into this 1.618, I often call those absolute no-brainer trade levels. And of course, there is the 50% level of that entire range. Good old Colin and his pump chasers. So I think you can make the argument we're coming into location down in this area. But, you know, how does Licks go, right? And I think Licks is probably, I'm going to remember that. So L-I-C-S. Licks, come and lick me, please. What? So I think location, we're coming into location. Do we have indicator confirmation? I actually would like to see price make a lower low, but then we look down at our indicators and we see that they are not making a lower low. Do we have any kind of sign of that yet at all? And the answer is nope. That's a lower low. Yuck. Nope. That's a lower low. And Willie, is Willie stupid yet? I don't think Willie even ever got stupid yet. So this is just more anecdotal evidence. Yeah, we got down to like 79, but we didn't get to 80. So this is more anecdotal evidence. We don't have any bottom in RSI. There's no Willie Stupid. There's no MACD div. So unfortunately, when it comes to licks, IC, sorry, no IC. And if we're not at IC, then we can't even think about S. So again, sort of heading into Brian's birthday, I like the idea that this thing actually has to make a new low, probably somewhere around that first or second week of May. And then remember I said the gods of war actually wake up here when Saturn goes into Aries. And unfortunately, I think that we could actually see some really nasty stuff in this world around that event. I think that we're in the dreamer part of the cycle, right? Neptune is the dreamer. So unfortunately, this is a lot of market manipulation. It's not real. It's fugazi, dreamer, right? Think that. I really like that thinking. But I think that once we actually get to this point, I think that you're going to mysteriously find that wars are going to start developing. And there's always an old adage that when the hegemony, the superpower, when the bullets actually start flying from the superpower, you go and run into the superpower and all bets are off everywhere else. So my hunch is that things firm up as we head into this event. And then once we head into that event, then I think we're back into this kind of world. So just be patient. That's really my advice to you. Be patient. And if you can, start accumulating in earnest good quality names that are actually starting to come into good trade location. And then if you happen to have ideas that are in good trade location, they've got indicator confirmation, that they have price structure. That's like my funny little win pack here. And it makes sense that this name looks good because they're in an extremely boring industry. They're making money hand over fist. And of course, the price structure itself is the coup de grace. I love my weekly W's, especially if they're key reversals. Holy crap on a stick. Okay, that is 20 past the hour. So I have about a half an hour until I absolutely have to get the hell out of here. So I hope you enjoyed that market summary. Yeah, maybe let me know. What do you think, everybody who is watching over there on YouTube? It looks like we lost half of the audience. So I don't know whether you guys felt like you got good value out of all of that, but I gave you my heart and soul there, and I think I did a pretty good summary of what I'm seeing in the market, including some very, very disturbing stuff that everybody should be paying attention to. All right, let's go find the AMA document and see if we can quickly answer those questions. And then the final thing I will ask of all of you is, can you wish me good luck on the roads and giving Liam the absolute best possible afternoon with his old man possible. All right, where do we go? I'm going to go here, and then Chris, and then AMA. I see the newsletter. I see the tweets. I see Video Ninja. There's AMA way over there. So many, it's remarkable when you actually go through doing one of these shows, how many little things you have to take care of. And I have to say, I love working with Chris. He's just so on the ball. Every single time I get together with him, he's just absolutely crisp. I love that about him. Must be because he's born on a certain day of the week, or day of the week, day of the month, day of the year. Okay, let's see what we got here question-wise. Oh boy, you know what? I'm gonna have to. God, I literally can't read that. I'm so fucking blind. Anyway, I think I better go see an optometrist. This is getting serious. Okay, Brian's opinion, eh? Oh, goodness. Okay, I think, was that this week or is that previous? Oh, well, that's a while ago. Okay. Oh, yeah, a long time ago. All right, where are we? There we are. All right. All the best with Liam. Thank you. And actually, it's interesting. His mother, bless her heart, Jojo. Oh, I love you so much, you knucklehead. Oh, hey, what the hell happened? Okay, well, so much for that. I actually like that. You know what? I'm gonna put that back in there. Anyway, I've been calling him actually the name that his mother used to call him. She used to always call him Lily. I've been calling him that a lot lately. Anyway, he likes it. So, all right, Ninja, let's see what I got here. What's up, Brian? Well, nothing in my pants. Well, that's a good sign, I suppose. What's your take on the art world? I think it's actually exactly the same as the luxury watch world. I don't know whether you ever seen what's happened to the luxury watch world. I'd say the art world is exactly the same. And the problem with the art world is that there's really no value to any of it. It's really just a question of what's the last buyer willing to pay for something. So, if the 1% is getting richer and richer and richer, odds are that they've got a whole bunch of disposable income that's just sitting around doing absolutely nothing. And can they go and throw a million, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars at frivolous things like art? Yeah, totally. Um, but I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the day, the art world goes the exact same direction that the luxury watch world went. We used to have a guy on the site who was really big into the luxury watch, Rolexes and all that shit. And then all of a sudden, the floor just fell out of the market. I don't think that the floor will fall out of, like Picasso kind of markets, because there's always those, billionaires, trillionaires that are sitting around with ridiculous amounts of money. And in a weird sort of way, in that social circle, it actually buys you credibility. If you're the guy who went and spent $200 million on, a piece of shit smeared against the wall, but it's art, right? So you have to be very careful. I'm a value guy. So the problem is that whenever I look at something, if I'm thinking about buying Bitcoin, I always ask, what's the cost of production? So, and if I'm buying crypto, I always ask, okay, well, what the hell is value? What is the value of one of these Ethereums? Can you actually tell me if there's any value to one of these Ethereums? I suppose if you could do price charts of art, I might be interested if you saw the price of a piece of art went skyrocketing and then all of a sudden came crashing down and it was trading at levels not seen in 5, 10, 20 years. I might take a real good look at that from a cheap ass perspective. I've heard from the big players that they have a fond interest in collecting trading in it. Yeah, absolutely. And that, according to them, it's unregulated and somewhat immoral or seedy underworld. Absolutely. The whole, how do you actually determine whether your piece of art has acceptable provenance is a total fucking con job. And I remember there was somebody who found a Jackson Pollock piece of art, and literally the art world would not validate that it was a legitimate Jackson Pollock piece of work. And so as a result, they could not get the price tag that they wanted. Can you chart art? I don't think so. It's kind of like real estate. I've always asked, when can I go pull up a price chart of Vancouver real estate? And I remember I stood in front of Peter Brown once and asked specifically that question. And if you know anything about Canadian securities and the history of the Canadian stock market, you know who Peter Brown is. I asked that in front of a room full of traders and brokers and shit, and they all laughed at me because it just doesn't exist. And keep in mind, the Vancouver real estate market is 100% manipulated market. So, can you chart art? I don't think you can. Not like options or stock or crypto or anything. I'm not quite sure if there's a question here, but what I just said there should have basically spoken to your reference. And I don't think you will ever be able to find a quote unquote buy signal in a piece of art. Summed it up basically. Thanks. And really, it's just my opinion, right? It's just my opinion. So, I'm sure there are other people that will have a completely different take on this. But, your comment here with regard to the heavily manipulated art world, you are absolutely right. Spot on. And I do not like the idea of quote unquote investing in this space. It's really a crapshoot. I would actually suggest it's far better for you to find an artist that's getting old, go to them, and because they're still alive, their art won't be worth that much. But if they're really old, see if you can buy some. You might have to pay up a bit, but literally the day that they die, that art all of a sudden goes crazy ass through the roof because there will never be another one made by that artist. So if you wanted to time purchases of art, that's the way that I would approach it. Or go stumble around in like secondhand shops looking for old dusty pieces of art. You'd be surprised. That's where a lot of people find absolute gems, and they bought it at a secondhand store, junk shop, thrift store, whatever, and it turns out that actually it was worth a fortune. But if I was going to look to buy art and invest in art, those would be the two routes that I would go. All right, number 2. Hi, Brian. Is there somewhere in the world where you can get both the free market, democratic freedom of speech, etc., and the totalitarian dictatorship where you're not under the banksters, or it doesn't exist? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just think about it. Would a totalitarian dictatorship like things like free market? No. Would they like democracy? And the sad part about democracy is, how do you get reelected as a democratically elected politician? You have to make promises to the electorate that really are unrealistic. And of course, that feeds right into the banksters' hands. So it shouldn't surprise any of us that democratically elected governments are owned by the bankster class. So, in fact, my old man, this would be his argument. He made this argument his whole life. What we really need, and very rarely does it happen in human history, is what's called a benevolent dictator. But it's almost impossible to find. Switzerland seems to have that neutral type of society in terms of foreign policy, where they're not involved in armed conflicts and promoting peace, although you mentioned in the past that the people are arrogant. Question mark? Oh, you obviously haven't been to Switzerland. They are very self-confident. Let's put it that way. So, unfortunately, I think the short answer is doesn't exist. Long answer is the United States of America was actually an experiment in trying this. And I think the central banksters, literally from day one of the United States of America being created, literally spent the past 200 years trying to dismantle the United States of America. And to all intents and purposes, I think they have achieved their objective. The United States of America is horrifically in debt. You all see those debt clocks, including all of our Western civilization societies. And you just saw there where a democratically elected politician basically tried to break the shackles of the debt market. And the debt market just said, excuse me, sir, shut the fuck up and get back into your place. And he just kowtowed like a little bitch. So Unfortunately, that's your answer. I suppose, I mean, what's fascinating is you can literally go through history. In fact, I had this conversation with somebody the other day where you can literally go through history and you can see how you get sort of dictators that are trying to be benevolent. And unfortunately, the central banksters slowly work their way in. You could argue Ivanov over there in Russia, he actually made the central banksters outlaws and illegal. And what happened? Well, the communist revolution. Who funded the communist revolution? Well, Vladimir Lenin got money from somebody. And you can fill in the blanks. After learning from TRI, it makes you look at life like a trader. That's absolutely right. That's what I want you to look at life at. And the irony of it all is, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. Market puts in a W and you go and buy it. Theoretically, your net worth goes up as a trader. The problem is you have to stomach the windows where the bankster crooks elites have to quote unquote reset the system. And like I said, this seems to happen once every 40 years, right around those interest rate extremes. And sadly, the next 40-year interest rate extreme is now for literally these governments to be made bankrupt. Thankfully, that won't happen for another 20, 30 years. So right now we are in the resetting phase. Either one of two things happens. Either the people who don't want to be resetted, i.e. they don't want to have their wealth confiscated, they stand up and we have a civil war, and a new government is formed that tells the banksters to go fuck themselves, and a new currency base is created out of the end result of that civil war. Or B, we all roll over like bitches and we take it up the ass and we have a whole bunch of our net worth, wealth confiscated by these bankster crooks, and we all get great resetted. And the easiest way for you to think about that is in the 1990s, I used to go to Subway and get a 6-inch tuna on cheese for $2.75. That was my lunch. And now if I go to Subway and I want the exact same sandwich, it costs about $8 or $9. And ironically enough, I think that price has to double again to get to 10x, where all we do is we just add a zero onto the end of our prices. And unfortunately, that's what all that great resetting is about. And unfortunately, the next big hyper wave of inflation that's coming down the pike in 27, 28, that's what takes that Subway sandwich now from $8, $9 up to $27. Sucks, but that's the reality. So do we, like you said, just buy our island and disappear? Well, if you get wealthy enough to be able to buy an island, I think it's definitely in your best interest. Could buy, what I'm very interested in is buying just a piece of land in the heartland of America, because I am still US dollar bullish, call me crazy. I think my hunch is that interest rates are going to go up, which means that you borrowing money, it's going to be more and more difficult. So you can go and buy your island, or you can buy your piece of land and put up a barbed wire fence around it. I don't really care, but you better make damn sure there's some chickens on there and you got some grow ops to make some vegetables, and you have a nice supply of things like staples like rice and wheat and flour and stuff to make your bread. I hear commie Canada nice in the summer. Canada is the last place in the world I would want you to be, because if there's an inflation problem in the States, I can guarantee you the inflation problem in China is going to be 10 times worse. So I don't think staying in China is appropriate. Having said that, I'm in a rent controlled building right now. So I do have a whole bunch of Chinese dollars here that I'd like to burn through that I really don't want to invest anything in China. One thing that's really interesting, though, that jumped out at me is, and this is just what's happening here in the short term, and it's 136 now. So you know what? I think let me know how you feel about this conversation and if you'd like to continue it on in tomorrow's call. But I think I have to basically get out of here and go to Liam right now. So I'm going to end the call here. But if you want to continue this conversation and what my strategy is around China and this political event that's coming up here, and what my sort of vision is for the next 10, 15 years for this country, just make a note and I'll be more than happy to carry on this conversation with you tomorrow. All right, everybody. As I said, wish me luck on the roads and fighting with the locals here. Let's hope Brian doesn't get into a fight. Wish me luck on giving Liam the absolute best afternoon I possibly can. Thank you very much for your best wishes. And the only thing left to say to you good people, number one, remember what your number one job is. Do you even know what your number one job is? And if you don't know what your number one job is, maybe time to get your butt into our education program and learn what your number one job is. Try not to take any wooden nickels. I think an orange-haired toupee idiot down in the States is shilling nickels made out of wood, right, left, and center. Be damn careful about what you buy out there in the world. And for God's sakes, don't listen to him or any of his family member for investment advice. How does it go? PMA for the win? Let's try and stay positive through all of this. And if anything, that's half my objective here, is to keep trying to make a positive difference in this world. I'm talking to you, good people. And the only thing left I have to say to you good people is a hearty bye for now.